So where's my place in ed tech as given to us by Dr. Penny to explain? And I've learned a lot this semester in this course, quite a bit actually. And some of it I felt like I had some inklings to on the inside, like some internal mechanism inside my brain saying, hey, some of these things have a strong possibility in education. And several of the topics that we talked about this past semester, especially later on in the semester, really drove home for me the reason why I have chosen to do what I do is almost like it backed up inside my head the reasons that I stepped out of the classroom and into the program that I've stepped into. So, where's my place in education? Well, let's take a look. First off, I loved this diffusion of innovation conversation that we had from Dr. Stansberry and in the reading, and it's just amazing to me when I think about this and when I've talked to other people. I didn't view myself necessarily as an early on person or even early majority, but more of a late majority sort of person. But um, on really thinking about that and understanding how this diffusion of innovation works, I feel like I am sort of a very early adopter of some things. I would love to be an innovator. I don't know that I'm there yet, and I don't know if I will ever know if I'm there. I think that sometimes when you're early innovating on something, it's difficult to call it early innovating until you can look back in hindsight. So maybe 15 years from now, when I look back at some things that I've tried to do at this point in time in my life, I will consider myself an early innovator. I am most definitely an early adopter. I think learning from the diffusion, both in our text and through Dr. Stansberry's presentation, this is where I want to be. I want to adopt that thing, and then I want to help spread these ideas and to others, and that's why I'm here, is to learn how to take some of these early adopters and just create a fire inside of them, or even to meet with innovators and create a way or a structure or mechanism to take great things to teachers that they can use right away in their classrooms, because so often as teachers we've seen so many things come and so many things go. It's just difficult for us sometimes to really sink our teeth into stuff. And I think with the just the personal risks that I've taken inside the classroom, with flipping my class and then moving into gamification, those are definitely early adopter things. I didn't create those things. I borrowed heavily from others around me in reading about what they had done, but trying to just spread a different way of doing things through the teachers. And it's risky. It's very risky in our culture today, in our school climate, to try new things. But new things are there, and they are great, and they are amazing, and they can do wonderful things. And so I have there's a name now that I learned this semester, from Dr. Spector and Dr. Stansberry, uh, and I think this diffusion of innovation is just super interesting and right up my alley. I can totally buy into that. Some other things that we talked about were the different learning, educational instructional learning designs. And I was familiar with several of those on there. As a teacher, you go through your teacher training and pre-service teaching, and you learn all these different lesson designs and instructional designs and all of these things. But one of the ones that really grabbed my attention, I want to look at this more, is the Kathy Moore's action mapping. It fascinated me. It absolutely fascinated me, because it falls in line with the things that I'm interested in, as long as not as long as, but in line with gamification. So in gamification, or in video game based learning, which I find my passions going to more and more and more, you aren't given the entire thing to learn. When you start playing a video game, you're just given just enough to learn those basic moves and to start exploring. And in Kathy Moore's action map, you only have enough information to get started, and then you work on that information through some sort of activity. And then as you go through that activity, you learn more, and then ultimately there's a specific goal at the end. And I think that's really applicable to education today. We've gotten away from, we're so focused into kind of some other areas where we've been forced through policy, but there's still ways to move inside of education in a way that can make a difference, and in a way where kids can learn, and in a way where a teacher can be creative and students can be creative, and just in a way that is overall better, because it creates a problem-solving nature. As we get out into the real world, it's not just bubble in tests fill in the blank. It's problem solving. And so I loved Kathy Moore's action mapping because it took just a little nugget of thing, and then it asked for that, exploration of that thing until you had that specific goal. And also in this particular section of class, I love Gagne's 9 events of instruction. I think those are great, and I just don't see how you can go wrong with those. I find that when I have my best lessons, I tend to follow a lot of Gagne's 9 events of instruction. And Bloom's taxonomy also is really important to me because it's one of the reasons why I flipped my classroom from a regular class to a flipped classroom, and why I moved towards gamification. I was trying really, really hard to get to the upper level of learning on Bloom, but to bring that upper level of learning into my classroom and sending home those lower end pieces that are easy, that the students can do at home without the teacher. So I was really trying to put it on its head. I also am fascinated by the picture of Bloom's ed tech pyramid. I think that's also really interesting, and I think there could probably be a couple of tweaks made on that, but just the visualness of it, I think, is really great because it allows kids to create their knowledge in really fun ways, and there's a lot of good perks to that, as we will see as we talked about with 21st century, which I think is coming up on one of my other slides. So I just had not seen Kathy Moore's action mapping, and I thought that was great, and so I was grateful that was included in the course. So where do I fit in with all of this? And I think what stood out for me was I don't fit into ed tech. I'm going to stand out somehow, and I'm not sure how yet. I'm learning all of that, and through Dr. Penny and Dr. Susan and Dr. Tudelaney and the people that are pouring into me now as instructors and helping me become better. I'm not going to fit in. I'm going to stand out, and I'm going to make a difference in some way. And through research that I do, or through projects that I share, or just through going through life like I choose to do it, I'm going to stand out with ed tech as part of the foundation of my life. And I use it here at my house with my kids. I encourage them to be creative and learn. And I can't say that it's transferred directly to the classroom yet, but I feel like with the different things that we've just done here, the problem solving skills that they're picking up and acquiring, and the different ways that they're learning, that they don't have to just get frustrated with the wrong answer. They can continue to learn and be wrong, and that's okay, and just learn how to make adjustments from that. So that happens here in my house. And as I've gone through coursework, and I try and take that same attitude. I know that there have been things that I've done that have maybe not been as good as they could be. But looking at that and going, okay, what can I do different, better next time? What can I be more creative with next time? What can I do that makes a difference next time? And try not to repeat some of those same mistakes sometimes that hold us in. So where do I fit in? I don't want to fit in. I want to stand out. And so along with those lines, right here are ways that I see that I can stand out while fitting in, or not fitting in, as it were. And these are the reasons that we actually talked about this week. These are reasons why I chose to step into the PhD program at school. And one of those things is I look around and I look at how teachers can be intimidated and scared of educational technology. And yes, some of it is super scary, and there's a lot of it. How do you pick what's best? But I want to help other teachers. I want to help them understand. I want to help them use ed tech in powerful, powerful ways. And I know that teachers' time is very restricted. They don't have a lot of room to go and look and evaluate and try. But I want to be able to give them some cool tools, some cool ideas, some neat ways that they can look at some of these educational technologies and start incorporating them starting tomorrow. I really, really want to help teachers do that. It's not scary. It's not intimidating. It's fun. It's cool. It gives your students voice. It gives you voice. It's amazing, and I want to help other teachers do that. I also loved the learning design theories, and it pushed me. It's pushing me to explore more ways to get even further out of my comfort zone. How can I be the best teacher of teachers? How can I be the best teacher of students? What can I do that's unique and different but powerful? And some of these learning designs have challenged me in that, because I'd never thought of learning in the way that those things had been set up and shown to us, and they were fascinating to me. And I've already talked about the Kathy Moore's mapping is just very, very neat, and I think there's something there. And maybe for me, my standout part will be coming up with a learning design based on games. That teachers can take into their classrooms and use as a framework without having to stress out about it, but as in, hey, I'm already teaching these things. These are the tweaks that I need to make. Also, overcoming communication. We talked about that as well. And that's super critical to help teachers understand how educational technology can benefit them in the classroom and how they can use it to make a difference in the lives of their students as well. And it also takes communication on the part of the teacher to the student to communicate exactly what's happening now with the learning process, because when students are now required to contribute to that, and when students are required to create some of their own content, it becomes very difficult and challenging for them, and that really knocks them off their balance. And so teachers need to be able to clearly communicate what those learning needs are. Just like I'll need to be able to clearly communicate to teachers how they can best use these things in the classroom. So communication, as always, is critical. And then the 21st century skills. I mean, we're in the middle of the 21st century, and we're still talking about 21st century skills. And if you go and if you read my blog at all, I feel like we have just handcuffed ourselves to one specific model of teaching and learning. Just look at our school campuses for the most part. They're institutional, old school style, brick and mortar places, and they don't look like learning, innovation, creative spaces. They look like learning factories, and that's how they're set up, and that's how a lot of them are organized. And yes, organizing 2,000 students to go the right direction, I understand that there are some issues there, but why are we still teaching in a way that could be very easily be picked up and set down in the early 1900s? With students in rows and the teacher at the front on some sort of chalkboard, which even a smartboard today can be viewed as a chalkboard if that's how a teacher is using it. So how do we make those changes and actually get into 21st century learning? How do we do that in a way that makes a huge difference? How do we do that in a way where we look at classrooms now and they're completely different and more innovative and more creative and more just stronger in helping teachers teach their students? So how do we do that? How do we actually incorporate those 21st century learning skills as a part of everyday course? And with some of the system that we have right now, where you just go through and bubble in a test, that's not using those 21st century skills. And if you'll humor me for just a second, I want to read those to you out of our book. Um, Creativity and innovation, critical thinking and problem solving, communication and collaboration. These are skills that aren't necessarily testable, yet we want students to have them, but we lose the focus in the classroom because of some of our culture. And again, I'm not trying to knock policy. I think it's very important, but I think there's a better way. What about information literacy, media literacy, and ICT literacy? So with media literacy, why can't we use teachers to model correct use of media? Why do we have to make Facebook or Twitter such a taboo thing? Why can't we train students to use those things in a way that's positive and not necessarily a form of being a bully online or something like that, but is a responsible way, good digital citizenship, flexibility and adaptability, initiative and self-direction, social and cross-cultural skills, productivity and accountability, and leadership and responsibility. I know in the school that I taught at in Edmond Memorial for years, they worked on a lot of those things just outside of the normal teaching day. It wasn't down to teachers to help them do that, but it was through different things that the school incorporated as part of the school's culture that helped students learn some of these different things. But I think that even as good as Memorial was, there's ways that it could get better. And I think that's a system. That's a system deal. I think these are all system deals, and these are all 21st century skills. And we've got to learn these things. So how can we learn these things? With ed tech. Ed tech shrinks the world, and it brings the whole entire world right into your classroom at the click of a button. And it's amazing. And you can learn about other cultures, and you can learn about other things, and you can learn about resources and business and industry, and you can bring it right to your kids. What better way to talk about the Civil War than maybe have a Skype classroom Skype with a school that's firmly in the north and a school that's firmly in the south, and some of those lingering issues that are there. What better way to learn about the American Revolution than to hook up with a classroom in Great Britain and talk with them about how they learn about the American Revolution? I just think that there are some really great ways to do that, and those are 21st century skills where we're creating those connections worldwide, and we're letting kids get that information literacy and media literacy, and where they can be creative, and where they learn about other cultures. I think it's critical. So that's what I've learned so far. It's been a great journey. I look forward to what comes next.